Awesome. Well, Phil, let me restart there. Mispronounced your name. Awesome. Well, Phil, glad to have you on board. I've seen a lot of your content on LinkedIn, on Twitter, in the great Foxwell Founders community. So excited to have you on here today, just so you can share some of your wisdom.
Thanks, Colby. Great to be here.
Yeah. And so you made a recent transition from one agency to the other. Maybe just give listeners a little bit of background on where you're at currently and like what your day to day looks like.
Yeah, great. I appreciate that. So, yeah, I joined Tycoon at the start of the year with Colin, who's a great member of Foxwell community, also busy on Twitter and LinkedIn. And yeah, I joined Colin to be director of paid social. So, Colin is predominantly Google focused. He's been a big Google guy for 15 years. Yeah, I've come in to sort of head up the paid social, work very closely with Olympia on creative strategy, creative direction. So yeah, it's paid social is what I've been doing for 10 years plus. So I'm very comfortable.
I was recently hiring for a head of growth role. I feel like it's you start with one or the other, Google or Facebook, and like that is the true thing. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of dabble in both, but I feel like just naturally I started Facebook. I have like gut bias towards Facebook being the spender versus Google being the spender. I don't know if you've seen the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, we always work with clients who are, sort of 80% in one camp.
Hmm.
And I think that just aligns with people as well. I think it's very rare that you'd get someone who's exceptional in both.
At multi-platform.
Yeah, with many years under their belt at the same time. I think that's
Hmm.
super rare. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know we have a couple of good things to talk through today. One thing that's really kind of priority for you right now is just agency marketing and just making sure that, we're marketers, like that is our tried and true. But a lot of times as agency owners, as leaders in agencies, it can be easy to focus a lot of effort on the client work and not as much effort on the agency website or on, case studies or whatever it may be. Where are you at with agency marketing right now? And what do you feel like is really pushing things forward for you?
Yeah. So I've been, naturally, like you said, I've got sort of an okay profile online. I've been active for a number of years. I've put the effort in and the time to build a bit of a profile. So I've been brought in to provide some of that benefit to the agency as well as managing the team. And um, it's the classic problem. We're so busy managing clients, the clients that pay us, that the website falls apart. Our case studies are very old. The agency's social platforms might be very out of date because we're growing client brands or fighting fires maybe, or managing teams. um I would always prioritize, and this is what we've done, is more attempts at bat.
Mm.
So whether that's social posts, emails, lead magnets, podcast episodes, blog posts, whatever it is. I might have already said that, but I think too often we can, as agency owners and marketers, we can be so precious on perfection when it comes to our own personal marketing.
Mm.
And I don't think we take that approach when it comes to clients very often. A lot of the time, we've built this ad, it's 90% of the way there. Sometimes we can get very frustrated if a client wants to optimize that final 10%, and we want to say, let's just get it live and get the data back. That's how we should really be treating agency marketing. So if you've got an idea that you want to write more case studies, just start writing them, get them 90% of the way there, put it down, come back in a week and reread it and almost do the same thing again. And what we do is we set a task and we set a number of reps. So at the moment it's lead magnets. We're doing one a week. I think we've done 3 now at least. We've already got an idea for the next one. The first one wasn't perfect. A few hiccups in its go live. The second one wasn't perfect. We're still optimizing them. We're having
Mm.
a whole ton of fun putting them out there. The team are all behind it. It's a thread of topic when we're online, when we're talking internally. This is what we're working on. Everyone's understands why we're doing it, and the more we do them, the better they will become. And I think it's too easy to focus on the here and now and getting something perfect live, when actually we should be thinking about where are these lead magnets going to be in 6 months' time.
Hmm.
They're going to be in an awesome place that is uh, imposing to competition agencies. And when it comes to agency marketing, what I always like to think about, and some people might disagree or think this is stupid, but if our competition saw us doing this, would they feel nervous? Would they be nervous?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, that's probably a good thing to just go out and start doing it and just get better at it over time.
Yeah, and I think one thing I've felt, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this as well, is like when you're involved in something. So, like, let's say a case study, like you helped a client grow X% or something, it can lose its luster, it can lose its appeal because you were in the day to day and like you weren't like looking at it from the outside. So it can be easy to overlook content that could be great because you undervalue it because you're not seeing it from the external perspective, right? Like when I hear you say you've built an okay personal brand, I'm like, well, you're very well known, like you're very popular. So it's like I perceive that same thing of like you've been in it, so like maybe you see it differently than other people see it because you've been from where you were to where you are. You know what I mean? But when someone sees your content, it's like, okay, a lot of people are engaging with it, a lot of people are commenting on it. It's thoughtful. I think it's possible as marketers or as people creating their own content to just lose the fact that like you're sharing information, not you, just people in general, that other people might not know, other people might need, right? And get it out there, right? Get it out there and see how it performs. And it's not always engagement metrics that are the driver. You know what I mean? There's a lot of lurkers on Twitter and on LinkedIn that just keep up with content and will eventually reach out through DMs or something.
Yeah, yeah. The amount of times that we've had a prospect come on a call who's been running a huge brand, sort of 50 million in revenue a year, and you're like, wow, this is a great prospect. And then they mention, yeah, I've been following you on Twitter for a couple of years, and you find their profile
Mm,
because you hadn't noticed them, and it's a private profile. It's got a photo of a dog. They've got like 50 followers,
yeah.
and like you said, it's a lurker, and they're the ones that you won't reach unless you start putting something out there. And no one has ever come to me and said, the content you put out there is not very helpful. I don't
Mm,
rate it. It makes you sound like you don't know what you're talking about. I might say that to myself, when you go through
mm,
that sort of, doubter phase, imposter syndrome. I've had countless people come on to calls and say, you seem to know what you're talking about.
mhm,
And that's just because I started posting in that case. It could be anything. It could be writing a blog. It could be a newsletter. It could be a YouTube channel, whatever it is. I started and I just kept going. And I always remember back in the day when I first started tweeting and I had like 500 followers from, just being on there or whatnot. And I remember thinking, I'm going to do it and I'm going to build something. I'm going to put content out there that is truthful and honest and that I'm proud of.
mhm.
And that's where it's kind of got me. I might have got further if I'd put out more sort of clickbait, false content. But that I probably wouldn't have kept it up as long
Yeah.
as I have. Yeah.
I think one thing that's very interesting that I've noticed with some B2B thought leaders as well that I perceive as help them grow with their personal brand and things like that is finding an enemy to pin themselves against and then having the solution against that. And I'll give you two examples. One is listen, Barry Hott, for example, right? He is very much on the ugly ads side versus the perfection. Ugly ads perform. He's done a very good job at angling himself as being on the ugly ads side. If you say ugly ads or post-it notes, you think of Barry Hott, right? And he's created that corner of the market for himself. There's another marketer. He's on the B2B side. His name is Chris Walker, very well known on B2B marketing. He is very much on the demand generation side versus the lead generation side. So he is very much against gated PDF downloads and like vanity form fills that result in no SQLs and all of that. And he is like, for LinkedIn metrics, which is kind of like comparing Instagram to TikTok, like if he posts something within an hour, it has like 300 or 400 likes on it, which is huge on LinkedIn, right? So he's done a very good job at pinning himself against an enemy and being the solution so that people who resonate with that enemy or not liking that lead generation want to gravitate towards his content. You know what I mean? I think that's an interesting thing that B2B marketers can do to build out personal brand. It's just finding what your niche is. But all that to say, still just execute, follow everything Phil just said, because he's done a great job at it, much better than me. It's about the repetition, about learning as you go, right?
Yeah, I think you've got to find. We're all busy in work. You might be busy at home or whatnot. You may have finite hours to do this sort of stuff. You've got to build a habit that works
Mm-hmm.
both professionally and personally. You're not going to go to a gym every day if it's a 2 hour drive.
Mm-hmm.
And I've sort of carved the time in my day, whether that's late at night once the kids have gone to bed, early morning straight away before I get started. It only takes 20 minutes to build that habit.
And so now do you feel like with Twitter, especially because Twitter is the most frequent like platform in terms of needing to post, do you feel like now you've just kind of worked it into a habit where like, oh, I have 5 minutes in between a call, I'm going to tweet something? Or do you still like carve out time to do that?
And the reason why I said I think my personal profile is okay is because I haven't sort of formalized what that process is,
Gotcha.
like a professional level, what I would call it. I do go through phases where I'm not feeling confident or I don't know what to say,
Hmm.
and I won't force it. And I think that's because I've learned if I do try and force it, I don't really enjoy what I've written.
Hmm.
It doesn't feel honest or truthful, like what I said at the start earlier on. Um, and it doesn't do very well.
Hmm.
So I'll just sort of leave it, and then try and scratch that itch. Maybe pick it up at some point. Okay, does something come up in work with the team? Does something come up with clients that I think people might find interesting? Yeah, it's got to work for you in lots of different areas to keep it up over a long period of time. If you're just it's like lots of things from a marketing point of view. If you're just going to do it once, or you're just going to do it for 2 weeks, you might as well not start.
Hmm. Yeah.
You've really got to play that long game and think years rather than months.
And shout out to the Foxwell Founders community. This is a question I actually wanted to ask you, and I just thought of it. I feel like I noticed, but seeing if you can confirm. I saw someone ask a question in Foxwell Founders. You answered it in great detail. And then I saw a tweet about it like an hour later. Like, do you find inspiration from, because I've, with client ads, we say like research Reddit and find what people are talking about. Do you find like communities like Foxwell Founders is a great place to understand what people are looking to know?
It's part of my sort of train of thought.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't formalize it in that way because I feel like
Consciously.
that,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that might be a bit manipulative to sort of use Foxwell as my
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's a community though. It's a sounding board, right? I mean,
yeah,
what people are talking about there. Yeah.
yeah. But if the type of content that I really am passionate about putting out, and I think that people resonate with this content because the passion goes into the words, is stuff that I'm thinking about. It
Mm,
comes up with clients, upper funnel campaigns. Everyone's talking about it. You're talking to different people constantly. That's the sort of thing that will do well, and you will find it easy to write. And when I first started, how I got over my sort of imposter syndrome or nerves when it comes to writing something down in a professional voice is if I can't write it in one go,
mm,
I don't post it. So if I'm editing it too much,
mm.
I'll just leave it. I'll let it simmer. I'll come back. I'll think about it when I'm making the tea or whatnot, and then at some point it'll click and I'll put it out again.
I gotcha. Well, and so content wise, I mean, you're definitely talking about things you're doing in the day to day, and I know creative is a big thing for media buyers or just overall paid media now, right? And that comes from an operational perspective on like production timelines and ClickUp use or project management usage. We use ClickUp in house, and I believe you do as well. Um, what is that looking like for you now when it comes to priorities with getting creative out and just making sure that you are hitting timelines and managing multiple people and having things flowing?
Yeah, so I think very often we can think about the media buyer, a creative strategist or someone that's writing briefs, and then a creative or a
Mhm.
designer. And we don't put much thought into who's managing all of those different people.
Mm-hmm.
You've got potentially 3 different personalities, potentially 3 different sets of priorities, and they're going to be creatives. So that can bring its own challenges. I was a graphic designer, so I feel like I can say that. But you need a process operation person
Mm-hmm.
to manage that factory. Think about it like a line in a factory. If you don't have someone that's managing all of these different parts, moving priorities around, getting briefs off people, getting the briefs to the creatives, getting the assets back, getting them to the client for review. If you don't have that person doing that, you will hit a bottleneck. So you have to assign that to someone. If you can't hire someone to do that, you have to make that part of someone's job.
Mm-hmm.
Chances are, if that's going to be the creative strategist, that's going to be quite tough. It might be best being someone else from like a HR business operations point of view,
Mm-hmm.
like remove them from the creative element, and start tracking how many ads you get out each week. Start tracking how long it takes to build an ad and get it into the ad account. Start tracking how many ads or concepts you've got waiting to get started, how many ads you've got waiting in client review.
Mm-hmm.
So a bottleneck there. We use ClickUp, so a lot of these things sound like, well, how would you start tracking that? We use ClickUp. All the data's already in there
Mm-hmm.
from a status point of view. So you just need to build a dashboard, but it could just be a Google sheet. And just like the content, the B2B content, don't worry about the tracking being perfect. Start tracking and optimize everything. Optimize the creative production, and then also optimize the uh, the tracking of that, rather than putting delays in because it's not perfect. But it just makes everything a lot more enjoyable on a topic that can be quite hard. It takes us a long time to build ads. I think that's quite a common thing to hear.
To me, that is so. I think it took us. I don't have the exact number. It took us 3 to 6 months to fully get our creative studio process, what we call it, down to where when a new client comes on board, we have we do briefs, I should say, monthly. We don't do weekly briefs. We do monthly briefs and have a credit allocation for that with a point system to where like a static image in multiple sizes is 1 point, a GIF is 2, a video is 3, and then each client's brief has a certain cap of points that we hit. But it took us about 3 to 6 months to get to a point to where we can have their month 1 card with every step from the research process to the QC process and everything in between. And then their month 2 card. So we have time estimates for forecasting workload and all that. But it really did start with exactly what you were saying of just getting the team to start tracking time so we can understand how long a static normally takes or how long a video normally takes or how long a brief normally takes, because putting estimates to it is just that. It's just an estimate, and then you're just going to have to do a lot of revisions, right? So 100% aligned with you on that. Just really get started tracking time. We use ClickUp time tracking. Do you use an integration or do you use native ClickUp?
An integration, we use Harvest.
Okay. And you're happy with Harvest, how that is?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very good. That's the big thing that we push with the team is like we're not mouse movement tracking. We're not like going to be following up with you daily or weekly on like why did this take you 45 minutes and not 30 minutes. It's really just to understand process and like where can we modify things. And for example, how many tasks do we have in client review? We noticed pretty early on that we had some clients that would take a long time to get back to us on review. And what that would do is then we would need to do their stuff in our promised timeline of 2 to 3 days for revisions, but it was much later than we thought it was going to be, and it would cause hiccups. So we saw that in time tracking, and we started, or in status tracking, and we started sending clients an email 5 to 7 days ahead of when their creative was going to come in as a notice with the date that they were going to get it and when we needed it by. And that's helped, right? And those are the types of things that you can do operationally if you have your head up on a swivel and are looking for that as well.
Yeah. You've got to put the data down somewhere, leave it for a couple of weeks, and then start to review it. And it's
Yeah.
just like paid social. You can't optimize what you don't track. And it's the same. You can't optimize your team unless you track them, which sounds sort of
Yeah.
predatory, but it's not.
And I know we're coming to the top of our call, but that's actually one question I have for you on, so like you say, look at it like a production line, which I 100% agree on the creative side of things. Media buying, I feel like is a little bit different, but I would love for you to tell me otherwise, because it's something I've been struggling with of like, you know, when you're going to need to do what you're going to need to do with creative, because everything is mostly proactive unless you're doing some sort of iteration like follow up. But with media buying, yes, there is proactivity in planning, but there is an element of reactivity that is not there in creative. Do you recommend like blocking allowable reactive time per client per week, or like how do you go about doing project management for media buying?
So we have a recurring task that lives in ClickUp, which is basically like a weekly account management task,
Mhm.
which floats depending on how that week looks like from an individual's point of view, and that task has a certain number of subtasks, so that you would normally do every week. So review the top performing creative, review the lowest performing creative, look at where the spend is going, look at placements, demographic changes. Um, those are we like to have an element of predictivity and an element of rhythm,
Mhm.
um, which then leaves space for almost an element of chaos, which is where sort of greatness can sometimes come from.
Mhm.
What happens if we start whitelisting ads? Let's make a third party page in a third party domain. You're not going to come across that with a planned structure. That's going to need to take an element of initiative, blue sky thinking. So that's where we like to do like an 80-20 split. 80% is planned,
Okay.
predictable, and that builds into the account an element of stability.
Mhm.
I think that platforms are unstable, consumers are unstable, so we don't want
America
to.
is unstable right now, but go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So we don't want to increase that by being unstable ourselves,
Yeah.
but you do need that sort of element of rock star, um, where that's going to be what excites clients usually.
To go that way. Awesome. Well, Phil, I know that this has been a great conversation, at least from my perspective. I appreciate you coming on. And we'll definitely have to do this again sometime because I still have a ton of questions for you. But glad to be able to talk to you. Where can people follow you or learn more about you?
If you want a bit more informal, then hit me up on Twitter. If you want a bit more formal, LinkedIn, or the best version is in Foxwell. So yeah, join Foxwell.
Your Severance Any is LinkedIn. Your Audi is Twitter.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Phil, I appreciate it.
Cheers, Colby.